Hello there and welcome back to another edition of the Hot Lap Classic Remastered. This time take a look at the 1998 Lexus IS200. It is another Altezza, kind of. This is the IS200, the European spec Altezza, the one with the weird 2-litre inline-6 motor. So the way this works is in this game you have the Altezza AS200, which is a 2-litre 4-cylinder with no turbo. You have the IS200, which is a 2-litre 6-cylinder, no turbo. They both make about the same power. And then you've got the Altezza RS200, which has a 2-litre turbocharged engine. And then obviously you've got your LM editions and stuff like that. No IS300 2JZ configured cars in this game. I don't think they existed in 1999, hence why they don't. Anyways, yes, the IS200, I really like the IS200. This car, it was a bit of a revolution when this came out, in the same way that sort of the Lexus LS was to America, the Mercedes S-Class rival that put them on the map. The IS200 really caught on over here. This was sort of a BMW competitor that looked awesome in the 90s. You might say it hasn't aged well. I disagree. I mean, those rear lights, they literally became a staple of tuner culture. The Lexus lights, as we call them, or Altezza lights, as they're known in other parts of the world, because that's sort of a styling quirk that really became something going into the 2000s. And this car, it was built well, it drove well, it has the best gauge cluster of any car. I personally think they're sort of like watch dials. I love it. It's definitely up there as one of the best. Yeah, a bit of a revolution. Again, this was sort of the car that really helped push Lexus in Europe until Alan Partridge called it a Japanese Mercedes. Then it sort of fell apart a bit. But either way, we have this one here. Front-engined rear-wheel drive, 391 horsepower, 1,144 kilos, which, to be fair, is somewhere in between the AS200 and the RS200 in terms of upgraded statistics. This car is going to get 6 laps of the Motorsports Land track in order to set the best time it possibly can. Our current leader is the Mitsubishi GTO LM Edition. That's at a time of 27.017. The IS200 unlikely to beat that. Now, in terms of the Altezzas / IS200 we've had go round, we've had the two polar opposites. We've had the Altezza 280T by Tom's, which is the sort of most upgradable of all the cars. That sits very pretty, actually, 136th place with a 30.369. And then there is the Altezza AS200, which is a terrible car because that had a 4-speed automatic gearbox and wasn't very quick, and that's set like a 32.6. So this car, I'm going to guess, is going to go somewhere in between those, probably closer to the 280T. This one has the 6-speed manual, I believe, in it. So sort of how you'd expect the European spec ones to be. We did have automatics, but I don't know when they were introduced. Also worth mentioning, there is some confusion in the PAL regions of the game, and I guess maybe in the North American versions as well, as to how these sort of cars are defined, because in an attempt to localize, they called some of the Altezzas the Lexus IS200J. So the AS200 that we had go around, that was for some reason called the IS200J, and then you have this IS200. So this is a real IS200. The AS200 is not a Lexus IS200. Unless it was in some sort of weird Asian market, I don't think that car was ever referred to as the IS200, and the IS200 always had its 2-litre 6-cylinder, because, of course, Toyota had vastly different engines depending on where the cars were manufactured, naturally, because Toyota. So far, though, this drives pretty spot on, to be fair. Not a lot to complain about. It is quite similar to something like... I should have really looked at this before I started doing this. I think sort of BMW 328i, this may have already beaten that. I think that's at like a 30.9. That would be a pretty good place for this car to sort of get towards. The 328i actually had a lot more power than this, but this does seem a little bit more on the side of controllable, 30.536, as we come into our final lap in the IS200, which has been a bit of a joy to drive, actually. It is, you know, you got to be careful, the rear end will come out on it, but yeah, overall a pretty nice, solid car to drive. Gear ratios are nice, it's got a good amount of power. There's definitely a little bit more time in there, but I think it's one of those cars which it slides out pretty consistently, but it's still just about enough to catch you out, so I don't think we'd go that much quicker with this, but there you go. Also, again, another good way to tell the Altetzas and the correct IS200 between which one is which. This has its own special race mod, which you can see is sort of based on the Advan cars with the Lexus logos on it, which some of you may never have even seen before because you're so used to race modding the Altetzas and seeing the standard Altetza race mod, maybe, which is interesting. Yeah, there's a little bit more time in there, more than the sort of breakdowns on timing there would suggest, but I'm happy with that lap. I think this car performed pretty well. A 30.536 will place it into 156th place. Wait, what is it? 526 or 536? 536. 30.536 will place this car into 156th place. Goes in between the Nissan Silvia Spec R and the Lancia Stratos. It's not that far off that Acura NSX we had last time out. Clicking on the Europa V8 Esprit, Silvia Spec S, RX-7 Savannah. It is quicker than the E36 BMW Coupe, which I think is the quickest BMW we've had. In terms of stuff comparable to this, there's not a massive amount around here. Slightly slower than the E55 AMG, the Vauxhall Vectra, Audi A4 Avant, Honda Accord SIR, which is to be expected because this is a rear-wheel drive car and it doesn't have the mega sort of power and controllability the E55 had, and it doesn't have the nimbleness that something like a Vectra or the Accord had. In terms of this car's rivals, I mean, it beats the BMW 328i by 0.4 of a second. It's a long way off the Mercedes C43 AMG, but again, that car had a lot more controllability. It's about 0.6 up the road, the C43. So I guess the C43 is the one you'd look at, but also this costs a significant amount less than the C43. So I think it's a good job from the IS200. In case you're wondering, the 280 as well, about 0.2 second up the road, which is sort of what you'd expect. So I guess when the RS200 comes along, it'll slot somewhere between a 0.3 and a 0.5, but we'll wait and see for when that car comes to the course. Anyways, that is it for this episode. Thank you all very much for watching. Join me next time when I'll be driving something completely different. Until then, farewell.